not just about abolishing shortages which were in Soviet times. No, it is about human spirit, that such a big part of the globe, I speak about all former socialist Central and Eastern Europe in our case, that we were able to go to break through and to find out all by ourselves with the help of the rest of the world, of course, but to find out this organic way of life. I think this is the strongest proof that free market is the basic, and it is the only solution that humanity has if humanity is to live in prosperity.
This is Atlas Network with Michael Carnuccio.
Welcome to Atlas Network with Michael Carnuccio, the show that brings you inside the global freedom movement by talking with people shaping the future of liberty, often in the face of incredible odds. I'm your host, Michael Carnuccio. Today, we're diving into a powerful story of transformation. From the ashes of Soviet rule rose an independent Lithuania. And we're excited to be talking about someone who had influence in that rebirth, Elena Leontjeva, with the LFMI, Lithuania Free Market Institute. Now, Elena and I have been friends for quite a while. I've gotten to spend time with her and her team. I've been impressed and inspired by what they've done, not only in Lithuania, but more importantly, around the worldwide freedom movement. She's someone with significant influence with her peers that has been leading a larger conversation that we're excited to have today. So let's get started on that conversation. And Elena, I'm so excited for you to be with me today. But I want to start off with a specific question going back to kind of the start of LFMI and ask you, you were around for this rebirth that came out of the collapse of Soviet economy. And you have seen this rise in Lithuania, something I've experienced personally as well. What's the biggest challenge facing you today?
Hello, Michael. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Lithuania. We were so blessed to start the Lithuanian Free Market Institute 35 years ago, right after Lithuania declared its independence. And so we did not just see the changes, we were part of the changes, we were the drivers of the changes. And I think this is, a great luck in one's life to witness by your own spirit, by your own hopes, to spirit the changes. And the biggest challenges today are to probably lose the liberty that we have grounded so deeply in Lithuania, to lose it, step by step, gradually, a bite here, a bite there, and then you notice that those fundamentals that were so strong that they may go away. So we are facing these challenges, and I believe we have answers.
You've often said that even before you got involved and studied in the free market movement and the concepts of classical liberalism, that you found the market inside yourself. That's a quote that I heard you say before we got to know each other, and I've heard you say it since as well. What do you mean by that?
It's a long story. Let me put it in a short way. I started to work when I was 15 in a Soviet confectionery, producing very nice chocolates. And my mother was chief of economic department. So I saw all the reality of socialist economics from the inside the system. I saw how the plans were made, how my mother tried always to put plans lower than the fact so that she could pay some extras to the workers, how the workers were stealing On a lower level, they could put something in their pockets. On a higher level, they could maybe take something in a car. So the whole system was so corrupted, and imagine a 15-year-old girl got inside this system, and I had a very strong desire to find a solution so that people would not have to steal, so that we could buy those chocolates in the store without making a telephone call and saying, my daughter will come, please give her a box of chocolate. So, and I was studying in a technical school, mathematics and programming at that time. So at that time, my hope was that by better programming, modeling, we can improve the system. And it was a person called Vasily Leontjev, who was very famous for making those models. So only at the university, I was lucky to be in a time when the changes started. And then Professor Glavatskas, who is the main founder of our institute, he was witnessing that the change comes in a deeper reforms. And when I was writing some of my thesis at the university, I came to understanding that there must be private property. By analysis of how the market should be improved, how self-independence of socialist companies should be increased, eventually I came to understanding that there must be private property for market to operate really. So that's why I say that the first books by Hayek and Mises, they opened me the world, of course, more systematically described, but the world which I already witnessed by myself, because I recognize that this is the answer. And I think it is our hope, because market economy is organic for people. So everyone can come to this understanding like I came. So for me, it was very natural also to want to share this knowledge.
So this, I want to come back to something you said there, and we'll bring it into the conversation later. But I'm curious, because one of the first big reforms that you pushed for was a currency board reform. You went right after monetary policy. I've always wondered why that was one of the first things that I in studying kind of read and heard about with you. Is this why, because of your own personal experience and what you witnessed, or was it because this will be something that is key to transforming our economy?
It was not truly the very first adventure. We already have written the legal provisions for stock market and stock exchange without seeing any stock exchange in reality, just by thinking what are the very basic rules for people to be able to trade. And in Lithuania, we had a very early privatization, like in Czech Republic. In 1991, we already had people receiving their vouchers, and everyone could become an owner of either a flat or a share in a company. But there were no rules and no possibility to trade those shares, no disclosure rules, nothing. So we thought that it is really very basic to start the securities market and stock exchange. Even before that, we worked on commercial banking law, because banks are the blood system of a market economy. So we started with these institutions, and currency board was the next one. And money is, of course, the basis of market exchange. And Lithuania at that time has already introduced independent currency, litas. Yeah. But I was participating in some of the high-level meetings, and I was shocked that no one spoke and considered the constitution of money. People were mainly interested in the exchange rates, how to change rubles into litas, whether there should be some restrictions and so on. But I was probably the only one asking, and what are the rules of monetary policy? And at that time, I already knew from American scholars Kurt Schuller, George Selgin, Steve Hanke. I already knew about currency board model, and it came like a miracle, I could say. I've published one very short article when we had a very steady increase of exchange rate of litas vis-a-vis dollar, and economy was almost frozen because litas became twice as expensive in vis-a-vis dollar just in a month because of restrictive monetary policy. And all business was almost locked because all business plans, of course, were based on dollars, not on litas. And people were in big uncertainty. And at that time, I published a very small article, sitting with my son in a hospital, and the Prime Minister read this article, and I was invited to brief him about the solution.
Wow.
And he was a former businessman. He understood the system, and I got a lot of criticism at that time. People would say, "Do you believe that these former communists will implement this rule which is tying their hands?" They were former communists already returning to power at that time. But we did it. Almost no one believed in it, and even my teacher, Professor Glavatskas, was forecasting that the system will not last longer than a half a year or so, but it lasted for 21 years. So Lithuanian community was safeguarded from monetary policy. The main essence of currency board is that there is no monetary policy. And people in the central bank were against it. Imagine. And when I was writing the litas credibility law, I remember I called them and asked a technical advice on the provisions on how to invest reserves, because currency board is based on full reserves of foreign exchange and gold. And so I didn't dare to write it myself, so I asked the advice, and they told me, this law will be never implemented. We will not consult you. So then I said, okay, I write it as I understand it. And it was implemented, and for 21 years, Lithuania had very sound, very stable currency, treasury problems, bank runs, bankruptcies of banks. Never people had to pay by their pockets. So they were protected. And we had a lot of opposition also from businesses, because, business believes that for exports, devaluing currency is almost a necessity. So Lithuania has denied this myth, because as we were pegged with US dollar was appreciating vis-a-vis Deutschmark. Then we changed the peg to euro because of the accession to European Union. Right, and then euro started to appreciate vis-a-vis dollar.
Right.
So some people were really predicting that the system cannot last. But you know what? We have very strong exports, which are still steadily growing. And so the myth that only devaluing currency allows to advance exporting industries was not true. And so many other good things happened. I remember I promised in my articles, I had to publish and to speak a lot publicly at that time, that interest rates will go down, that litas will become convertible at once. But when this happened, it even was beyond my expectations, because convertibility just happened. You don't have to do anything. And the interest rate, not exchange rate, but interest rate went down from 100% to 17% just in few months. So it gave a boost to business growth.
Sure.
And of course, people still remember Litas, because now we have euro, but they still remember it with nostalgia because it was really sound currency.
So there's a couple things that are fascinating about this story, and I appreciate you sharing all the context, because I think one of the things your peers respect about you and recognize about you and your peers at LFMI is that no does not deter you, that when you're passionate and you know a path that needs to go, if you find opposition, you find a way to get through it or to get around it, and to continue forward. And with that, LFMI and the work that you and your colleagues have done has branched beyond just your borders of Lithuania, but starting to look throughout Europe and, more importantly, throughout the worldwide freedom movement at some of these key concepts that you think we need to be talking about, and a lot of your peers are starting to pay attention to. Let's talk about that a little bit now, but I want to ask you to take us back. What was the moment when you were sitting there and you thought, there's more than just reform here within Lithuania? There's something bigger that we have to talk about. What was that moment like for you from a leadership perspective?
That happened frequently, but one of the reforms I can share retrospectively, because we have also drafted tax reform, which is now known as Estonian profit tax. The idea is to defer profit taxation to the allocation of profits. When dividends are allocated, only at that moment profit should be taxed. And we have designed this model just after currency vote was introduced. So we were going step by step, about 95. And there is a booklet of a big conference published. So we have everything documented. And again, the Prime Minister participated in that conference.
Oh,
and
wow.
I told to my colleagues just before, I said, I have an intuition that they will not go to the full reform, but that they will relieve investment from taxation. Because, the biggest need of a new economy is investment, capital investment. And we did not have much foreign investment at that time. As I mentioned, we had voucher privatization. Thanks to that voucher privatization model, we have very strong local business community, very strong. And this is our main driver today and our main, protector today. So investment was incremental. And after this conference, truly, the government, the Prime Minister understood that investment should be relieved from taxation. So that part of profit which was reinvested was taxed first by 10% instead of 29%, and then by 0%. So from 1997 to 2002, when this model was introduced, our industry really boomed. Everyone put their profit into investment. Factories acquired technologies from the West. So it was really, a breakthrough from Soviet technologies and also former Soviet markets to the Western markets, because you cannot sell on the Western market, with the old Soviet technologies. And only later on, when I came back to my position in 2020, and I started to cooperate with Estonia, Estonians introduced this fully deferred profit tax in the year 2000. Lithuania had it in the government's program, but they got a warning from the EU, so they never introduced it. And when I spoke with my Estonian colleagues and I said, please share how you came to this idea, it was so interesting to find out. And they said, we did not come to this idea. We did not consider it analytically. Just the Reform Party, Mart Laar and Siim Kallas, they won the elections, And they said, we need to abolish corporate profit tax. And this was exactly our language. We spoke about abolishment of corporate profit tax. And I remember, if I remember it right, at one of the conferences of Atlas Network, when I was speaking about these fabulous developments, Mark Lahr was in the audience. So maybe it was even in the Atlas Network that the ideas shifted around the globe. It was so successful in Estonia then that in 2018, the same model was introduced in Latvia, the other Baltic country, and 2020 in Poland as an option. Companies can opt for such a model. You know what? We have an English proposal for Argentina and for United States, because I believe that you in United States and Argentina have very good reason and very good opportunity to move to this reform, because it is one-step reform. You just need to cover the income to the budget from the profit tax for 1 year. You know, governments are borrowing anyway. Governments are giving subsidies anyway. So it's better to use this money for 1 year to compensate for the income from profit tax, because Estonian examples show that in the next years they recovered fully, and it was enough money for the budget and great money in investment. And most importantly, it simplifies the accounting. There is no special fiscal accounting. Financial accounting and fiscal accounting become one. And the tax authorities are only interested in profit when it becomes dividends. So it simplifies everything so much. And I'm so thankful to our Estonian colleagues also in the Ministry of Finance, also Latvian Ministry of Finance and Polish Ministry of Finance. We cooperated with them. You know, we built a coalition when the OECD discussed the minimum profit tax, because at that time the risk was that this deferred profit tax model will be declared illegal, you know, impossible. But it was approved. Now there is some special rules if a country uses this model or wants to implement this model. But I think for the whole global community, for the future of tax competition, it is so vital that this model is legitimate. So any country can opt to move from traditional profit tax to deferred profit tax.
So this is an exciting story of not only trying to have influence locally, but starting to inspire change through your peers within your region of the globe, but then what has now transcended throughout the worldwide freedom movement. And with that, I've got a couple questions that I have to ask you that have to do with the work you're doing now and this science of lack and conversations that you are leading throughout the worldwide freedom movement. And just for our viewers and listeners, I have to share my own personal experience. You and I started talking about this a little when we would see each other at Atlas Network events. And then I came and had a wonderful opportunity to meet with you and your team. And there was an anthropologist in the room. And I thought, what think tank is this? Like, they are bringing minds and study that I'm not, an economist I'm used to, but you had philosophers and anthropologists in the room. And it was such a robust, exciting conversation. So can we talk a little bit about your exploration and your policy work on this science of lack? Explain for our audience what that means.
Yeah, it was a big grant from the Templeton Foundation, originating in 2015. And they asked us to come with an idea how to unite economy and morality. And since I was writing my novel at that time, not engaged in the everyday running of the institute, I was able to think deeper, and my proposal was to look at something which people do not understand and which is the basis of economic life in general. And this basis is the phenomena of scarcity. So my experience of reform showed that people do not like scarcity. They hate monetizing things, although in Soviet times everything was in shortage. When healthcare was monetized, when education was monetized, and people had to pay for some service, there was kind of refusal. And so my hypothesis was that humanity doesn't know something important about scarcity. And our study went beyond economics into philosophy, anthropology, theology, history, sociology. My colleagues only cut my hands not to engage physics, but physics is in the documentary. So we went very broad to see what humanity knows about the principle when something is not yet here, something that is incomplete.
Right.
And we found out that scarcity, or in universal sense, we call it lack or limitation or incompleteness, that this is one of the three basic fundamental origins of everything coming to being, becoming, changing. It's a principle of change.
Sure.
And so this is very philosophical, but scarcity is everywhere around us. And one of the most important insight coming back to economy is that economy is probably the only field of human life where scarcity is so well known. And humanity even found a mark of scarcity in economic life, and this mark is called money. That is why money are so fundamental. Money signs that resources are scarce, that resources must be measured. Only thanks to money can we evaluate things and exchange things.
Sure.
But also it shows why economics is named dismal science, because it is the only field of human life where scarcity is not hidden. You know, in
Right.
relationship, there is also limitation. In knowledge, everywhere there is this pressure of incompleteness, imperfection. Maybe imperfection is better understood. But in all other spheres of life, it is kind of hidden. You know, there is an illusion that there could be perfection. But in economics, resources are scarce. Time, which is the first economic resource, is scarce. And because of scarcity of time, we need to prioritize, to make choices, to say yes and no. So this study is, on one hand, very philosophical. On the other hand, it is very practical, because it explains economic phenomena deeper and better. And also it allows us to explain that economic life is a reflection of who we are, how limited, fragile, finite people are. So to find this bridge between humanity, human being, and economic life and economic patterns is an important achievement, I believe. And therefore I say that today we can face the socialist challenges, the populist challenges, because we better understand what people do not know about economic exchange, why they like private property when it comes to their own, and why they despise private property of the other, and what kind of education is needed for us to come to peace with our human nature and how it is reflected in economic life and in the free market economy.
It is, and it's fascinating discussion, conversation that I encourage everyone to go to atlasnetwork.org, where they can learn more, they can see the documentary, they can follow your work on this topic. And folks, while you're there, I encourage you to join the Worldwide Freedom Movement with a contribution of $25 to get Freedom's Champion magazine, or join my wife and I and become part of the Atlas Club. Elena, I want to ask, what kind of response have you been getting since you started this conversation on scarcity and specifically started bringing in the sciences into this classical liberal conversation and a focus on economic policy through that lens? What kind of feedback and response have you gotten?
At the beginning, it was not easy, which is a good sign.
Sure.
And some people feel that it is something esoteric. It's, too multidisciplinary, too deep, because frequently people need, quick solutions here and now, quick policy changes. But now, as we got all our good policy changes in place, we face another reality. We need to safeguard them. And to safeguard them, we need to educate people. Therefore, we do more and more educational activities at schools. And it is our deep experience, especially after COVID and after the war in Ukraine started, that the society started to say, wow, your study of lag, it is so timely, because those times of trouble, times of insecurity, they really brought us to the need to understand that insecurity is a reality of human life and human history. And the illusion which was widespread before COVID, that we are just 1 year ahead of, away from, complete, perfect life, fulfillment of all our needs and desires. This illusion was broken, and people had no other faith, no other path. So explanation that humanity always had to go through challenges, that all achievement in private life and in public life goes through perseverance, efforts, and that most exciting thing is that liberty is only possible because there is scarcity, because not all houses are constructed, not all nice plants are already planted. There is incompleteness, which is an open space for our liberty. This was probably one of the most wonderful findings of our study. And liberty always is going ahead in uncertainty, in insecurity. And people who probably know this better than others are business people, entrepreneurs, because they're always dealing with something which is not yet here. And our creativity is also a response to scarcity. All economic life is a response to scarcity in creation of wealth, in creation of plenitude. And imagine what's a pity it is that humanity does not understand that market and exchange and private property, that they help us to build the prosperity, to go out of our poverty. And when people blame market and money and exchange for poverty, this is one of the biggest injustices. So, of course, we are full of desire to share this knowledge, because otherwise, I believe it is impossible to keep sustainable liberty, to keep sustainable market order. Because as I was telling on my recent cornerstone talk at Atlas Network Liberty Forum, if people do not understand that exchange creates value for both parties, they always feel some uneasiness after exchange. So our study explained that this uneasiness is the existential, universal, constant of that scarcity and lack will always be after every exchange. And it is an illusion to believe that it will be completely removed. And if we feel uneasiness after exchange, it does not mean that the other person cheated us.
Right.
It is just our part of our human nature. And only because we are insatiable can we have aims. So only if we understand that can we become peaceful with the others in exchange. Otherwise, my prediction is that people will always want to change the face of the other person by the faceless state.
Right.
Because it is the state who promises you always favorable prices, always to buy from you high and to sell low to you.
Yeah.
So if people don't understand that this is our basis of exchange, and that we always come to compromise, but we both benefit because we both agree. So this hidden value which is increased in an exchange, it is so mystical, I may say, almost as mystical as the value which is created by an entrepreneur. People see how a worker is toiling, he's sweating. Everyone sees that the value is increased in a hard labor, but that value is increased by an entrepreneur who does not sweat. And that value can increase in an exchange when we just shake hands peacefully. People don't see this miracle. So it's such an injustice for me.
Well, and let me dive deeper into that. Why is it that you think people inherently feel that business or the free market is the enemy in this scenario? Why do they immediately default that the state may be the solution and their friend, but the business is the enemy when it comes to this concept of scarcity?
Everyone wants to get more at a cheaper price and to sell what they produce at a higher price. And it gives this existential insatisfaction. So even if I sell very high and buy very cheap, my satisfaction is very instant. And the next moment, I'm again in a condition where I feel I'm still a poor guy. I'm still lacking guy, because we are needy people. But this is by definition. It's not because Michael cheated me or someone cheated me. It's by definition that I am a needy person. But it is not very easy to understand. But to blame the other, we know from the Bible, to blame the other, to see the beam in another's eyes, it's much easier. So we can also engage all of these biblical patterns to economic life and understand why it is always a kind of easier for people to blame the others. And of course, the employer is always the one who presses you to work quicker, to give better quality, who cannot pay you as much as you want. But on top of the employer is the consumer. And it is the consumer who wants the Mercedes to be delivered next week, not in half a year. It is the consumer who wants the Mercedes to be cheaper, not more expensive,
Right.
to have higher quality. So, and we explained that the consumer and the employee are actually the same people, only in a different robes. You know, when I'm working, I do not think that the consumers who are pressing my employer, they want everything to be cheaper, better quality, quicker.
Right.
So there are so many inattentions in our humanity which we do not know. Imagine 2025, 26 is coming, and we do not know so basic things. And therefore, it is so easy to be in conflict with the market, with the businessmen, with the employers. They're all bad people, and they're demonized all over the world. They're demonized. Maybe America is still has a bigger respect for business, I believe. But in Europe, we have problem. But I mean, once we understand that those problems come from human nature, then we could design some educational efforts. And it is not easy, but at least we give chance to some people who want the good answer.
Sure.
Because many people, the worse what happens if people think that capitalism is immoral, and many people believe that, but they live in a capitalist society. They work in a private company or they have their own small business. Every day they sell and buy. So, according to moral philosophy, if one believes that something is immoral but is engaging in it every day, he is consciously giving consent to immoral action. So to liberate people from immorality and to open them the path to real practice of real morality. Once you understand all this ABC, you can really practice morality. Wow, this is a mission, I would say.
You mentioned a little bit ago your cornerstone talk that you gave at Atlas Network's Liberty Forum. You and I were there together in New York City with over 1,000 of our friends, right, from throughout the worldwide freedom movement. Let me ask you about your experience throughout the years with Atlas Network. What has that been like? Why has that mattered to you? How has that helped you as a leader of a think tank in Lithuania?
It helped enormously, and just to know that we are not alone, because my institute, as I mentioned, was established without any foreign participation, all by my professor and us, his doctoral students. So to find out that there are like-minded people, there are like-minded networks, there is the whole tradition that I'm not the first one who understands that free market is better than socialist planning, to find out all this tradition, the intellectual, spiritual tradition behind the Atlas Network. It is such a strength. And I remember even in older days when we had an opportunity to come to United States, it was like recharging the batteries, because working from a private small think tank in a very big public arena, it's not easy. Frequently people want you to go away. It's not just always the doors are open. Sometimes you have to go through the window.
Yes.
So, and sometimes you can get tired of criticism and misunderstandings and so on. So always going to Atlas Network, meeting people who are in the same jobs, in the same mission, seeing the efforts, following Sir Anthony Fisher tradition, understanding that it was not just my intuition that it is better to run a think tank than to go to politics. when you understand that it was not just my intuition, it is a part of a very deep tradition.
That's a good point.
I always tell to my young colleagues who sometimes maybe have a dream to become a member of parliament or so, and say, in the long run, we have much bigger impact, but it is integral with our love of liberty, because I have just one free voice. I have just one pen to write, or one computer. And I think it is very integral for a person who believes in liberty to have to act from an institution which has no official power whatsoever. But I tell you a joke. It's not a joke. We just had a celebration of our 35th anniversary, and we had some greetings also from Tom Palmer from Atlas Network and some other people. And we had one greeting of a politician who probably does not love us very much, but I knew that he was repeating that several times in other audiences, so he agreed to make a greeting to us where he says, "What is the most influential party in Lithuania in 35 years?" And he said, "You think conservatives or you think social democrats?" "No," he says, "it is the Lithuanian Free Market Institute, because if they go out on the street and I ask 10 people about how they understand markets, exchange, money, bureaucracy, they will respond to me in the terms of the Lithuanian Free Market Institute." He said 8 of them will respond in the language of the Free Market Institute. And he said, and this is the biggest influence one can have over the long run.
Congratulations, and what an impressive level of impact and importance that many organizations and many of your partners and peers can aspire to. Let me ask you one more question about interacting throughout Atlas Network. You have had a lot of interface with philanthropists and donors. You're involved with the foundation yourself in helping other organizations. If you were at an Atlas Network event and a donor walked up to you and said, I don't know, is my gift make a difference? Am I really helping in the cause of liberty? What would you say to that donor?
First of all, because it shows the world that free people can unite their resources to do what is most important, that people do not rely on the state funding, on someone to decide that this reform is needed or that change is needed, that efforts, minds, intellectuals, tradition, and financial resources, knowledge can be united by free will. This is first most important change in itself, because we are those who live in liberty. If we do this, if a donor is experiencing this every day, he knows that he is a practitioner of liberty. And of course, then to know that this money have been used to educate, like in our case, already 10 generation of school children, not only in economics, but in economics, ethics, and civic education together. In another room as we speak, my colleagues Annette and Leonardas are having a web seminar with 126 teachers.
Wow.
Around Lithuania. And those teachers are using our textbooks to teach hundreds or maybe thousands of school children. All those changes, all those reforms have happened not because the government or the World Bank decided that we need this reform. Most of them were born in a think tank like our, in other countries as well. So we can always go ahead of the government, ahead of official authorities, because we do not have electoral cycle. No, we are free people. We have the liberty to think 10, 20 years ahead and to care about next generations. Politicians, as a rule, have a very, very short spectrum of attention. So all these reforms, I think they are important because it is a school of how humanity could come back to this organic way of life, to economic exchange, to private property, which is so basic. It's not just about abolishing shortages, which were in Soviet times. No, it is about human spirit, that such a big part of the globe, I speak about all former socialist Central and Eastern Europe in our case, that we were able to go to break through and to find out all by ourselves with the help of the rest of the world, of course, but to find out this organic way of life. I think this is the strongest proof that free market is the basic, and it is the only solution that humanity has if humanity is to live in prosperity. What happens now is going a bit outside, but
Sure.
I'm hopeful because outside eventually people will starve. So what happened in China, during the time of famine, people were allowed to take their private pieces of land and to work it, because people understood that this is the only way to keep their life, to keep their existence. So I think this move from socialist economy to the organic free market economy, which is much stronger than in the Western Europe today, it happened thanks to you, donors.
Elena, we only have time for a few questions. And so we've come to the point in the program that I always love to ask all of my guests about their hometown. And I love to bring the audience there. I have had the pleasure of being with you at the office at LFMI's headquarters, and we've gone out to eat there, but our audience has not. So if we were there together and we got with all of your colleagues and we decided to go eat or do something in town, what is the Lithuanian food that we have to try?
I was about to say you about the new French restaurant, which has opened recently just near our office. And we have a very nice office in the very center of Vilnius, in a very nice street, very famous also for nice food and street life. National food is very, very simple, very peasant style. It's potatoes, meat. In the old times, mainly pork. Today, of course, we have all the varieties of meats.
Sure.
So we have very famous ceppeline, which you probably tried. It's mashed potatoes with the meat inside, mashed meat inside. It is a very heavy dishes because we Lithuanians, we work hard, as you see, and we achieve much.
That's right. Okay, one last question for you, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and appreciate your time. But it is clear all the way back to the beginning of your story, and even today in the middle of this discussion, you have this enthusiasm and this joy. What is it that gives you hope?
Hope is the last bridge by which we can go through the times of uncertainty. And we live now especially in a special uncertainty because of the Russian aggression, of the possible threats all around us. Also, economic conditions are gradually deteriorating. It's the first year when we will have progressive taxation introduced by the leftist government. So hope comes from understanding that human spirit will always fight for liberty. Just recently, we had a huge manifestation in Lithuania against restriction of the free speech. 10,000 people or even 15,000 people near the parliament, the main street. So people will never give up liberty, and liberty is, for us, it's not just a value. Because if we believe that liberty is a value, then some people say, you have this value, I have different value. My value is slavery. My value is oppression. But when we understand that liberty is a part of human nature, of human character, and all of our studies, they only strengthen this understanding, why our liberty is so incremental. So if we understand that liberty is a part of human character and nature, then taking away liberty is a fight against humanity, a fight against human nature. And this gives me strength, it gives me power, and it gives me hope to stand for liberty.
Well, what an incredible journey. From imagining freedom as a child in the Soviet Union to helping design one of the most vibrant post-Soviet economies in the world. Elena's story reminds us that liberty isn't inevitable. It takes courage. It takes vision and tireless work to build and defend the institutions that protect it. And thankfully, through Atlas Network, people like Elena never have to stand alone. So if you're inspired by what you've heard today, here's how you can be part of this story. You can join Atlas Network. You can be part of the worldwide freedom movement. You can be part of the Atlas Club. You can attend a regional liberty forum, or you can support an organization like the Lithuanian Free Market Institute. So folks, please go to atlasnetwork.org to learn more about how you can support and be part of the worldwide freedom movement, and also how you can join Elena in the work that she's doing. I'm Michael Carnuccio, and I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening, and we'll see you in another conversation very soon.
Thank you.